He's a tough one. There's times when he's looked really good. He's played some of his best football this year. And then he has times when he just makes critical mistakes.
Let's go to our main man, Tommy Lawlor, joining us right now here on Birds 365. Let's bring up Tommy. You can follow him on Twitter at LawlorNFL and go to IGGLESblitz.com, EaglesBlitz.com. It's one of the best Eagles websites. Tommy, I love your work. We appreciate you joining in today, my friend. How you doing on this Friday morning?
Good. How you fellas doing?
Good to see you, Tommy. It's been a while.
It has been a while.
Yeah.
It has been a while. Glad to be back.
Good to have you back. Interested to get right off the bat, take your temperature of this team. Boy, man, I think people got used to this winning 20-21. I mean, a historic level of winning. And all of a sudden, this is the NFL. You have a good week, you have a bad week, teams lose, they win, they jump back. And some of that, the Eagles are going through it. Are you surprised just the level of consternation, I guess, after a couple losses that people haven't seen for a very long time?
No, so with Eagles fans, you guys know, we love Eagles fans, right? But they are they can be run a tad emotional, and so heck, I mean, you have a couple of bad drives in a game, people get fired up. Hey, get rid of this bum. So losing 2 games in a row, I can live with that. It's some of the media, the national media, who all of a sudden, you think the Eagles were the worst team in football.
Wow, I was just saying that. I'm like, some of these adjectives being used. I'm like, really?
Listen, we know teams are gonna be up and down. That's just the reality of life in the NFL. What the Eagles went through last year, like you said, that was an anomaly. That stretch they had after going 2-2, you just don't find yourself winning games like that, and then to dominate the way they did in the playoffs. I mean, think about it. They won the NFC Championship by 32 points and then had a 34-point lead late in the Super Bowl. That's not common. That's freakish stuff. So we knew they'd come back a little bit to earth this year, especially with some of the losses. But it is fair to say, while the Eagles are 4-2, those 4 wins were flawed, right? There were some issues in those 4 wins. So this team is a few plays away from being 3-3 or 2-4. I mean, a blocked field goal, 2 blocked field goals.
Oh, yeah.
So
they were living on the edge. That's part of the problem. I think the margin of error is too small. The path they took to win last year, even if let's be honest, I mean, numbers wise, the passing offense, Tommy, is not much different than it was last year, really. They just had the success and the crutch was the running game. That's been the difference. The downgrade from having an historic running game to a below average running game with Saquon Barkley in this offensive line. That to me is tough to understand. What and obviously it's everything, but what do you look at when those problems? It doesn't seem like Saquon has lost a step. The offensive line is still talented. Maybe they're banged up. Maybe the physical brand of football they played and how much they played impacted the offensive line more than Saquon Barkley. We all were focused on the touches. Maybe it hurt the offensive line more than Saquon Barkley. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think you're dead on. I mean, the offensive line normally is either the best in the NFL or one of the 2 or 3 best in the NFL. This year, it's not in the top 20. It's just not a good group right now. They have great names, but if you watch the tape, you're not going to see great blocking. If you look at yards before contact, the Eagles are normally, over the past 5 or 6 years, are in the top 5 almost every year. This year, they're down in the 20s. That's not a reflection of Kevin Patullo. That's not a reflection of Saquon Barkley. That's a reflection of blocking. And it goes beyond just the offensive line, the tight ends, the wide receivers. This team is just not blocking well with any consistency. You see plays or stretches in games when they block well. You say, okay, the lights come on, and then it just goes away. And a lot of it, I think, is physical, where Landon Dickerson normally is a dominant run blocker because of his size and his strength. That is a very powerful man, and he's just not getting the movement with any consistency this year. Cam Jurgens still isn't 100%, and you can see his play is erratic. There'll be a play where he's on the move and he looks great, and then there was a critical run play against Denver, and Draymond Jones just drove him 5 yards into the backfield. And Saquon Barkley's amazing, but he's not a magician, right? He can't magically appear on the other side of the line of scrimmage. He's got to actually get there. And when he's got a defensive tackle on his lap, there's not much you can do. So, and honestly, if you go watch the tape, there's times when Jordan Mailata's missing blocks that he shouldn't. Tyler Steen, has had some real good moments as a run blocker, and he's had some moments he missed he had a little trap play the other day. He just needed to kick out a defensive end, and Saquon had some room to run to get to the outside. Maybe that turns into a 10 or 20 yard gain, God forbid, a huge play. Instead, he misses the defensive end, and Saquon's tackled for loss. And all of a sudden, now you've got 2nd and 12, 2nd and 13. Well, what happens then? You end up with a dump off pass to Saquon in the flat for 3 yards, and you throw an incompletion on 3rd and 10, you punt the ball, right? And so it's been a frustrating year. And that's not to say Kevin Patullo and the coaches couldn't be better, but the offensive line, and I do think a lot of it is just they are really not 100% from last year. And it's funny, we didn't think about that. You're right, John. We totally talked about would Saquon wear down and not the big fellas up front.
Yeah.
Tommy, what are you seeing with Jalen Hurts? I'm trying, either you might have to walk me off the ledge here, and I'm not at the ledge, honestly. But 30th offense in football, Tommy. We talked about some of the change in the offseason. They didn't have a lot of change on the offense. And I know you bring up the names, but they bring back all these guys, and sometimes it's like scratching nails on a chalkboard to try and get A.J. Brown the football. I get he's a running quarterback. I get he's a dual threat, but where are you on Jalen Hurts, and how do you evaluate him through the first 6 games so far this year?
He's a tough one. There's times when he's looked really good. He's played some of his best football this year. And then he has times when he just makes critical mistakes. The failed deep ball to Devontae the other day, you got Devontae open for what would have been an 89 or 90-yard touchdown. Wide open. Just throw it up there. The only thing you can't do is overthrow him. You can underthrow him. He'll either catch it or it'll be interference. He overthrows him by 3 or 4 yards, and, you're punting the football. If you score that touchdown, who knows how that changes the game. The interception, you're down 10 points. You drive into the red zone. He forces the ball, Jahan Dotson. He gets picked off. He's got A.J. Brown wide open over the middle. Should have been a touchdown. You got a 27-24 game. The Eagles have momentum. Do the Giants respond? Who knows what goes on there? Instead, he forces the ball to the outside. It's picked off. So Jalen is making some critical mistakes that he didn't make in the past. Normally he wouldn't make mistakes. There was times that he would throw the ball away and he'd frustrate us. He still leads the league in passes just thrown away. And there's times when it's maddening to see him scramble to the right, hold the ball for 5 seconds, and then throw the ball into the 5th row. But at the very least, it's not a loss of yards, and it's not going to be picked off, right? It's going to be a guy selling beer that's going to pick that pass off. Right. And so you can live with that. But this year you're seeing him just have some mistakes that he makes where maybe he'll throw a pass that's off target. Maybe he'll make a poor decision. And like I say, you combine that with it. There's other times when he executes the offense at a really good level. And you sit there and you say, oh, man, okay, he's developed and the things are clicking and you get real hope for him. The passing game for part of the game the other night, I mean, they led that game 17-13, right? They fell down 13-3. They scored 2 touchdowns. Hurts looked good. He was throwing the ball on crossing patterns to Devontae, to AJ. He was getting the ball out. He was making smart reads. And you said, okay, this is it. And then, I don't know, it just goes away. And John was talking earlier about, the need for consistency. And, man, they are anything but consistent. And that's what's so frustrating. How do you, if you're a coach, how do you fix it when the engine runs great half the time and then won't start the other half, right? That's a challenge, right? And I don't know what Sirianni or Patullo need to do. Obviously, a big part of it is getting a running game going because Hurts is not a volume passer. That's not a guy you want throwing 40 passes a game. They're sitting Kurt Warner and the old, Rams wanting to just throw it around the field all day long. That's just not who the Eagles are. He can have games when he throws the ball 30 times and he does fine, absolutely, but that's not a guy you want throwing the ball 40 times on a consistent basis. You want to mix in a run. And part of it is teams are playing more zone than ever, and that hurts him. The other problem, and I don't think anybody's really talked about, if they have, I haven't seen a lot on it, is as teams play zone, that makes it tougher for him to throw the football because he's not as good on playing against the zone, but it also affects him as a runner, right? So Jalen is any mobile quarterback is at his most dangerous against man coverage because in man coverage, the defensive backs turn their back.
Yeah.
They're chasing the receivers down the field. In zone, everybody's facing the line of scrimmage. And so Jalen starts to run, and all of a sudden he's got all these guys who can close to the football, and he doesn't have the gaps to run into the space to run. So he's not as good throwing the football against the zone. He's not as good running the football against the zone. It makes it tough, and that's something that they long-term, Jalen, if he's ever going to become the great quarterback that he can be on a consistent basis, he needs to be better against the zone. I mean, he still has moments when he's a fantastic quarterback, and he's still one of the best in the league. But we're talking about if you want to get to that next tier level that we see Josh Allen at and Joe Burrow at that level, that you've got to be able to play.
Or Joe Flacco, Tommy. Did you watch that? Joe Flacco or Joe Flacco's level?
No, he's retired. There is some weird old guy playing for Cincinnati now. I don't know who that is, though.
Did you watch the game last night? Because a lot of people were saying, why can Joe Flacco go into Cincinnati in 10 days and throw and be on the same page with Jamar Chase and throw these anticipatory throws? And I'm that's not what the modern game is now. So I want your thoughts as a historian, and you've seen a lot of football. I mean, that used to be like a staple of every NFL offense, an out pattern. The wide receiver, the ball is out before the wide receiver even makes his cut, and you have that chemistry and you have that touch. And Joe Flacco can do it, and he was humming last night. I think people that expect that, and I'm not picking on Jalen Hurts. You can look at any of these young sort of dual threat quarterbacks coming out of college. They're not taught that way. That's not that tool is not in their arsenal. Can it be developed?
Yeah. No, and listen, you know how it is. If somebody is supernaturally gifted, they rely on those gifts on a regular basis, right? It becomes a bit of a crutch for them. Joe Flacco, when he was young, 2008, this guy with a big, strong arm. He actually moved pretty well for a guy his size for the first couple of years. He had a 38-yard touchdown run as a rookie. That would shock people today. But he was a guy that had natural talent. But as that talent fades, you have to become precise at what you do. And, you see that with him. You saw that with a guy like Drew Brees. You go back to when Drew Brees was young, he was a kind of a mobile quarterback. As he got older, he's a guy that was just a master in the pocket. He knew the offense inside out. He knew exactly where his receivers be, and he knew where to place the ball, and he had the ability to place the ball in precise spots. And you saw Flacco last night. When he was at his best, he was putting the ball in precise spots. And if you're a talented guy who's got physical gifts, sometimes you're looking to make big plays and splash plays and do these other things, and you get away from the little things, which are just throwing short, quick, precise passes. And then the other thing about Flacco is with his age and his kind of, I don't know if it's confidence or his delusional, maybe it's a little bit of both. It's a healthy mix. Sometimes you just listen, he knows he's not going to win the Super Bowl, so just throw it. Just take chances. Give your guys a chance to make plays. And T. Higgins made some of those plays last night. Jamar Chase made some of those plays last night. Give your guys a chance. And so often we see, heck, go back to Jackson Dart. Think about that third and long on that first series last Thursday. He drops back, and Keely Ringo's in pretty good coverage on the receiver. He throws the ball, just says, go make a play. And his guy went up and made a play. And Ringo, when I watched it live, it looked like he was trying to pick the ball off. And I'm like, just knock it down, dude. Just knock it down. You don't need to try to intercept. It's third down. If you knock it down, they punt the ball. You get it back, forget the interception. Yeah. On a replay, it's like, maybe he was trying to play the ball a little bit and not just pick it off. But you've got to have him play that ball better. Bottom line, he's got to make that breakup. And instead, the Giants receiver made the catch. They ended up scoring a touchdown on that drive. Was the guy open? Not really. But Jackson Dart said, heck with it. Let me give my guy a chance. And he made a play. Right. And sometimes that's one of the things I wish Jalen Hurts did a better job of give your guy a chance. He does it with A.J. Brown on those sideline throws. But he doesn't always do that at other times with his guys. Just give your guy a chance, and if he's got an angle, see if you can put it in a spot where he can go up and make a play. And Joe Flacco did a great job that last night. And the other thing is the Steelers' defense. Just where was it?
Terrible.
Oh my goodness!
That's part of it too. How many blown
Watt had his worst game? Somebody posted the stats. I think he had 2 pressures on 50 rushes, and that's just shocking. That's shocking. So. I was watching part of the game with my brother-in-law who's a Steelers fan, and trust me, I heard about how awful that defense was for 3 hours. So,
and that's Jalen Ramsey and Darius Slay and Joey Porter at cornerback.
right.
They've invested a lot in the cornerback position, and nobody could cover Jamar Chase. Nobody.
I guess
or T. Higgins. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the only guy I've seen cover him is Cooper DeJean, right?
Yeah. He got that nice fourth down. That was fourth down stop. That was great play.
It was so shocking that last year Jamar Chase against the Eagles had like 52 yards in receiving or something. And I still don't understand how that happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a good point. The best player, everybody has good games. Everybody has bad games.
Absolutely.
And that's, there was a great clip, by the way, of that game where, because the Eagles fans were also, hey, we stopped Joe Burrow. Why isn't Joe Burrow, this and that? And then the defense was all arguing over who would get Joe Burrow's jersey, which I thought was great.
Yes, sir.
I thought it was great. But yeah, everybody has good games. Everybody has bad games. But when you hear on this offense, and look, the most troubling part to me is they've been outgained for 6 consecutive games. Every single game, the opponent has had more total yardage. That's typically not the case with a good football team. That troubles me a little bit. But when you hear some of the national people you're talking about, and you hear the words not creative, you hear the words predictable, and that's coming from inside the house with Lane Johnson. And when you hear the words like that, what do you think? Do you think it's fair? Do you think it's unfair? Because they seem, and Saquon Barkley said, we were pretty predictable last year. Nobody cared.
Exactly. Listen, you and I both watched the Dallas Cowboys win 3 Super
Bowls.
Oh,
yeah. I bring them up all the time, man.
And you knew what was coming.
Yeah.
They had a play called load left. They'd run it, and they would get first downs with Emmitt Smith. Third down, the ball was going to Jay Novacek. Well, you couldn't stop it. Your first and second down, they'd mix in some play action pass. But you go watch that offense. It wasn't super creative.
No.
He just executed at such a high level, and that's what made them special. And the Eagles, listen, if you go back to 2022 with Shane Steichen, they were very creative. They've backed off that a little bit. There's no question. You watch Indianapolis, you see they've got a creative offense, but creative can be overrated. I mean, I know the football analysts on TV and Twitter, they love the creative plays. Man, they get excited. Oh, look at this. They love watching Sean McVay where Puka Nacua does what they call the B insert. Where
I love that
he's
too.
coming up that, and he goes up between the guard and the center, the guard and the tackle, and releases into his pass route, and there's all this creative. They love that stuff, and I get it. That's awesome. That's the fun of football. But you don't have to be creative to win. You've got to be good. And the Eagles were good last year, and they're not playing good football on offense right now. The offensive line's got to play better. And I think the other thing is, so here's where Patullo needs to figure out what he wants to do and what's the best way to use his personnel. You watch the tight ends block. Dallas Goedert normally is one of the best blocking tight ends in the league. He hasn't been this year. He's been inconsistent. Grant Calcaterra is just not a good blocker. Yeah. And I just don't know what Sirianni and Howie, why they like him so much. I mean,
especially for a team that wants to play this way. If you want to play this way, why do you have Calcaterra?
Well, exactly. I mean, if you want to play 2 tight ends, go get another tight end who can block. Right. That's why I wanted them to draft Jackson Hall as the tight end from Georgia Tech going to Buffalo, and now is doing a fantastic job for that. Or if you say, listen, we want that second tight end to be a guy that can be a real playmaking receiver. Calcaterra has some potential there because he is a good athlete, no question about it. But go invest a better resource and get a player who's just better. Calcaterra is inconsistent. He'll have he had a 40-yard play a couple of years ago, looked just fantastic on. You just don't see that with any consistency. So, but you've got to figure out a way to maximize your personnel, and the Eagles have the pieces to be successful, even with an offensive line that's not playing well. They should be doing better than they are. And that's up to the coaches to say, do we need to abandon 12 personnel and cut that back and go to more empty sets? Jalen always looks comfortable in empty sets. Get him back there, allows him to see what's going on, and do some of that. Do more quarterback design runs. The one thing I give Kevin Patullo credit, you look at the red zone offense. The red zone offense is creative, and they've got the best road zone offense in the NFL, and that's a big reason they're 4-2 and not worse.
Yeah, why is he uncreative? And then all of a sudden he gets very creative in the red zone. I don't understand some of these criticisms, Tommy. I really don't.
Well, listen, here's what it is. It goes back to you're the king. Not you, of course, and nobody would confuse that. When you're the Eagles, whoever it is, going back, I was telling a story the other day. I remember being in a sports bar back in the 90s and watching an Eagles-Cowboys game. And all the Eagles fans, the Eagles were a solid but mediocre type team at that point. And all the Eagles fans around me are like, why does John Madden love the Cowboys so much? All he does is talk about how good Michael Irvin is, Larry Allen is, Emmitt Smith is, Troy Aikman is. I'm like, you just named Hall of Famer, Hall of Famer, Hall of Famer, Hall of Famer. He doesn't love the Dallas Cowboys. He loves good players.
Yeah.
And you compare that to the Eagles, and you've got, I can't remember who was on that particular game, but it wasn't Hall of Famers. I can assure you that, right? You're sitting there pointing to Calvin Williams, banged up Ricky Waters, Ty Detmer. It was a drastic difference, right? And you say John Madden doesn't love the Cowboys. He loves good players. And when you build up winners like that, like the Eagles last year, all of a sudden people are just raving about the Eagles. Oh, they're so great. Well, once you get to the top, it's never fun to just support the team at the top. You always like to dig at them. You want to be the first guy to say, oh, I pointed out that they were starting to struggle and they were going to fall apart. So they start coming after whoever the champion is. We saw this with Kansas City. How many times do we see people throw dirt on Kansas City's grave?
Oh, yeah. I did. I'm rethinking it. I did. The Eagles kind of broke me on Kansas City, Tommy. I'm like, this is a descending team.
Do you remember a few years ago, the Patriots, probably a decade at this point, they lost a game on Sunday Night Football really badly. I don't know if it was to the Bengals or somebody. They lost by like 3 or 4 touchdowns. And people said, that's it. Belichick and Brady are done. And I think they won the Super Bowl that year. We just love to build something up. And the only thing we love more than building something up is tearing
knocking it down. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. So the Eagles are a victim of their own success. Listen, I'll take this. What you don't want, plenty of people said this. You don't mind good attention. You don't mind bad attention. What you don't want is no attention, right? And so if you want to be that franchise like the Jacksonville Jaguars that's floating and nobody's paying attention, then fine. But the Eagles are going to get their share of criticism. Huge market, lots of stars coming off a Super Bowl season. Anything they do wrong is going to draw a ton of attention. So that's just part of the game.
Yeah, it is, no doubt about it. Tommy, what do you think about the potential for trading right now? Zadarius Smith hung up the cleats, 5 games with the Eagles. He signed here right after the Week 1 game. He's gone. Nolan Smith's on IR. That edge group is thin, my friend. What do you think about some trade candidates for this team, and how realistic do you think it is that they go and try and make a move like that?
So here's where Howie Roseman has a tricky situation, and he and Jeff Lurie and Nick Sirianni need to have a real honest conversation. And they need to say, you know what, we can make trades. We have the draft capital to make trades. We do. But do we want to invest that draft cap? Do we think this team is going to be back to a Super Bowl type team in a month or 2 months? They'll make the playoffs. They've got enough talent. They're going to make the playoffs. But is this realistic? Or are these issues going to follow the whole – because this team may just need time off to heal. It may be that the 2025 Eagles are not going to be a title contender because – what those guys need, what Landon Dickerson needs is 6 months of no football. What Cam Jurgens needs is 6 months of no football. So before you go spend resources, it's always fun to go spend resources, and then April rolls around, you go, where the hell are all these draft picks we had?
Right.
And you look at some of the trades, Robert Quinn they traded for, just a complete waste of resources. Golden Tate got you a wild card win. They've traded for Tank Bigsby this year. He's not done a thing, right, to help him.
You pointed out in your article, Tommy, they start in every offensive drive in their own 15, their own 12-yard line. Tank Bigsby's done nothing for this team.
Yeah, and so you sit there and it's easy, it's fun for those of us on the outside to say, go make a trade, go get this guy, it'll solve the problems, but I'm not sure that these problems are solvable by a guy. And so I'm part of me is almost saying, don't make a trade, Howie. Stick with who you got. Let the young guys learn. And if it means this is a disappointing season, so be it. But be careful about using those resources, because you go to the draft next year, instead of getting a mediocre defensive end who's available because he's not playing well for his current team, or he's got some issue with his current team. Go draft some guys and let's build that room up so you're not stuck with the next going after Josh Uche and Aziz Ojulari next year. Guys you're signing on 1-year contracts. You got to build that group up for the future as a group with some young resources.
Now, play devil's advocate on that is my question to you would be, who's that much better than the Philadelphia Eagles? What is that team that you look at and say, oof, I don't know. I don't know if the Eagles can get by them. I don't look at any team in this league. The Giants. I don't look at any team in this league and say, I don't think the Eagles can't beat them.
You're exactly right. And what I'll tell you, and I thought about this as I was watching the game last night. Let me ask you guys. I'll start asking the questions for a second. Think about, so you had the Rams lose on Thursday Night Football to the Niners, the Eagles lose to the Giants, and then last night you had the Steelers lose to the Bengals and Grandpa Flacco. Does that make you feel different about the Giants game last week? Seeing that there's a trend of divisional upsets. And you sit there and say, well, okay, maybe that was a weird anomaly last week, or not anomaly, but it's part of this trend where maybe it's a reflection that there's a lot more parity this year, and it's not as troubling that the loss to the Giants as we thought it was last week.
Well, from my perspective, I hate Thursday Night Football. There's no, going through it and following this team day to day and being down there every day. They don't practice. Nobody practices for Thursday game. No team. It's not just the Eagles. You have a bunch of walkthroughs. In this case, it was a little bit better. If you have to go on the road, it's typically, if you have to fly, at least the Eagles got to take the luxury motor coach up there. But it's just really quick. It's really weird. The whole thing feels off. So I had that baked into pretty much every Thursday night game at this point, that it could be a little bit weird. But I was troubled by a bad football team beating them like that. I was a little bit troubled by
I'm more troubled, Tommy, by the whole thing, and you pointed it out earlier. They started 4-0, but anybody who was watching the games could see that there were some issues. Last year, we were the 31st ranked passing offense, coupled with the number 1 running game and the number 1 defense. Hey, that works. This year, we're the 30th ranked offense. We're struggling to run the ball. The offensive line is beat up. I'm not sure if they're going to get healthy. And the defense, maybe we're putting too much in stock in them. They're one of the lowest paid defenses in football. I know it's circumstantial, but they're not as good. So, is our only way to win if we can dominate in the run game and dominate defensively? That's my concern.
Well, they obviously have enough talent that they were able to go 4-0. And while we say, I don't want to use the phrase they got lucky, because it's not luck. Those field goal blocks were by design, right? Some of the turnovers, the defense made critical plays. The interception against Kansas City, they made that critical play in the red zone. Against Dallas, they knocked the football out. These weren't lucky plays. They were plays where the defense made something. And so there is something that this group can win ugly, right? And there is something to be said for that. Don't discount that as a talent. There is something to be said for that. But there still are some flaws that make me wonder, what is the peak? What is the ceiling for this team? And I'm not sure. But John, your point is absolutely right. This is the AFC is just a complete mess this year. Think about the Ravens. They're 1-5.
Oh my God. I picked them to go to the Super Bowl. I'm already embarrassed.
I actually picked them to go 1-5. It's written down somewhere. I'm just going to show it to you. They're a miss. Buffalo, while Buffalo's 4-2, they've lost 2 straight. If you go back, they needed a miracle to beat Baltimore in the season opener. They easily could be a 3-3 football team.
Yeah.
Kansas City looks like they're getting healthy. They're getting right. That they could be a team to watch, but the AFC, I just, you don't trust anybody in the AFC. The Colts, you can make an argument the Colts are the best team in the AFC.
I think they are. I mean, through 6 games.
Do you trust that to go for a whole season? Maybe. I don't know. They're good along the line of scrimmage, and Daniel Jones, what he's doing. The guy was a top pick for a reason. He had physical ability. He just went to a highly dysfunctional situation in New York, and he couldn't take advantage of that ability. Now he's got a creative offensive coach. He's got a good offensive line. He's got some skill players, and you're seeing the guys playing good football. So we'll see it
the whole league, by the way, Tommy, is reclamation projects at quarterback. I feel the guy's playing well. the Sam Darnolds of the world, the Daniel Joneses of the world, the Baker Mayfields of the world. It's unbelievable.
I think I hear what you're saying. You want the Eagles to trade Jalen Hurts for Joe Flacco? Am I reading this right?
Exactly. Yeah, no.
But your point, go back to the NFC. Who do you fear? The Lions look really good, but they're just so banged up on defense already, and we know that's what happened to them last year, and they couldn't win a playoff game. Tampa's the one team that's a little bit of an X factor because they've been winning ugly, but they've been really banged up, and they're going to start to get their players back.
Yeah. And by the way, the Eagles beat Tampa.
Right, they did. Yeah. That's exactly. But they beat them with a backup right tackle, a backup left guard, Mike Evans, I guess they did have Godwin, but he was a shell of himself in that game. So you say if we play that game over, how does it? Are the Eagles going to be better? Or is Tampa going to be better? And I don't know. Maybe. Well, of course, the other thing is it won't be 127 degrees. So who knows how Tampa plays in a different setting. So your point is absolutely right that maybe Howie's going to say the league is wide open right there because there is no team that you just sit there and say that's a juggernaut. The flip side of that is the Eagles were not a juggernaut at this point last year when they were 4-2 this time last year, and nobody was sitting there going, "Oh my God, watch out for the Eagles! They're a Super Bowl team." That didn't start for another few more weeks, and all of a sudden they got some momentum, and people said, "All right, that team's legit." So somebody's going to emerge over the next few weeks, whether it's Detroit or Tampa or I don't know, maybe the Chiefs, the Colts,
Green Bay, maybe Green Bay.
Yeah, hey, maybe it's the Eagles, right?
Maybe the Eagles.
Tommy, how do you evaluate Kevin Patullo at this point? He's all over. Everybody wants to talk about Kevin Patullo, blame Kevin Patullo. What do you think of Kevin Patullo so far this year?
My instinct is blame John McMullen, but now Patullo, he's a complicated discussion because he's coaching with one hand tied behind his back because of the offensive line struggles. And so you say to him, what have you done well? Well, the red zone, you get an A+ for the red zone. Third down, you're not going to get a good grade. Now you're not going to fail them for third down. They're awful on third down. But a lot of these are third and longs, right?
Yeah.
But you say you do need to be more creative than you are. There's just because we saw that against Denver. It was 3rd and 13 or 17, and they throw a 52-yard pass to Devontae. You've got these star receivers. Don't always just check the ball down. At some point, just throw it up. Again, what did I talk about Joe Flacco? Give your guy a chance to make a play. Hurts gave Devontae a chance to make a play. He does. Huge catch, leads to a scoring drive. So take some chances. Throw the ball downfield. If it gets picked off, is that different than a punt? So I think Patullo needs to be more creative, more aggressive on third downs. The run game, I do wish he was more creative. They have certain runs that look good and they'll go away from it. Get under center more if that'll help you. Run more outside plays. They have a play called Flip 90 that they've run once this year and it went for a nice gain. Is there a law that says you can't run that play twice? Right? And Flip 90 is my favorite football play. I love that play. And play it. Do it again. If somebody stops it, then quit running it. But until they stop it, keep running it, man. It drives me nuts for them not to stick with some stuff that works. So I think Patullo is really a mixed bag. I probably give him a C. I know most people would give him an F-, but I would give him a C because I think he's done good in some things and he's struggled in some things.
Well, you mentioned, a part of it is they're so hyper ball security conscious, which is a good thing. You go that 20 of 21 stretch, they had, I believe it was 42 takeaways versus 9 giveaways. I might be 1 or 2, somewhere in that range. Unbelievable. And they boil it down to, if you walk into the NovaCare Complex Auditorium, they got these 2 big banners. They're all over the building, ball security, and taking it away from the defensive person. All they do. Every practice, they have multiple drills, circuits, they call them, of ball security and taking the football away. They really, really, really overemphasize it. And I say overemphasize because I think it has made Jalen Hurts a little bit cautious to take some of those chances. It's a fine line, but their numbers for all the analytics and all the people, they look at 2 numbers: turnovers and explosive plays.
Right.
And if you win them both, you win a amazing amount of time. they keep winning the turnover battle for the most part. The explosive plays haven't been there. That's the part that's missing. But
Right.
and then if you boil it down to the more important of the two, it's turnovers. The takeaway, giveaway.
Sure.
Are they too stringent with it?
I think there's something to be said for that. Yeah, because you do want to. If you're going to win football games, you have to be aggressive. You have to have a mindset. You can't say, "Let's play not to lose." Right? You have to play to win. And we see the way Sirianni does that on fourth downs. He goes for it. He's an aggressive coach. But I think you're right. If you put that seed in somebody's head, don't turn it over. Don't turn it over. Sometimes messaging is important. You may want to say to Jalen, protect the ball. It's funny, protect the ball and don't turn over. The same thing, but different messaging. So one says protect the ball. Okay, that's positive. Don't turn it over puts the seed in there of don't make a mistake. Be careful. Be careful. And all of a sudden you find yourself hesitant in a key moment and you throw the ball into the fifth row. At some point you've got to take some chances. You've got to be a little aggressive. So I would say maybe messaging is there, but they need to just do something on the offense where they are a little bit more aggressive than they are right now. That needs to change. And I tell you, one of the other funny things as you look at last season and this season is complementary football, right? Where last year the offense would get the ball and they'd go, let's say you drove down and kicked the field goal, they get 3 points. Then the defense comes on the field and maybe it's a 3 and out, maybe it's 4 and out, 5 and out, but they get the football back to the offense. And the offense goes down, and maybe they kick another field goal, maybe they score a touchdown. And let's say you just kick another field goal, 6-0, and the defense comes back on the field, and again 3, 4, 5 and out, something, give a little bit of yard, they get the football back for the offense. This year, the offense goes 3 and out, the defense gives up a scoring drive, then the offense comes out, they go 3 and out, then the defense comes out and they give up a score, and so the defense is tired, the offense is frustrated, and instead of last year where they helped each other out, they played complementary football. You sit there and you see them, and they're both bringing out the worst in each other. The offense is going 3 and out. They're putting the defense back out there. The defense can't get a key stop, and the defense gives up points, and the offense feels desperate because they've got to catch up. They're playing from behind. Well, then they get sloppy, get 3 and out, 4 and out, whatever it is. The defense right back out there. That defense, and especially playing in the Tampa game and then the Denver game, 2 games where it was hot. The defense really, struggled late in those games, couldn't come up with key stops. Fangio said he didn't think that it had anything to do with it, but watching as an outsider, it sure felt like they wore down a little bit, and maybe some of it's physical, maybe some of it's just mental and emotional, where you just get that, you start to think, oh, we're not going to make that play. And it hasn't happened. And certainly in the Giants game in the fourth quarter, it was just a disaster, so the end of games has not been what it was in the past, where the Eagles would get the ball with a 1 possession lead and 6 minutes left and have a 5.5 minute drive, kick a field goal, give it back to the opponent, say, you got 30 seconds to score 2 possessions. Good luck, and then like the Ravens would drive down, score a touchdown and cut it close. But the Eagles had that ability to really close out games last year, and they're not doing it this year. And it's again, it's another thing that Sirianni's got to look at and say, how do we get better here?
Tommy, prediction for the game. Do they get back on track this week?
Well, my predictions have been pretty awful this year, so they're so hard to predict. And the Vikings are such a weird team. They're a 3-2 team.
Weird team. Yeah. Very
weird.
With
wins over Chicago, Cincinnati, and Cleveland. So if you have a C, you're going to lose to them. They've lost to Pittsburgh, and then they lost another game. So
P, they're going to lose to. That's a good sign for the Eagles.
I think so. I think the Eagles will find a way to win this game. If they lose to Carson Wentz, it's going to look like War of the Worlds out there in Philadelphia. All right, you don't want to lose to Carson Wentz.
Why do people in Philadelphia hate Carson Wentz so much? I
don't think it's so much hatred as it's the fallen hero. There are some people who hate him.
He was so good. He was so good in 2017. He was
the best quarterback play we've had in Philly, maybe ever that season. I know it was a short season, but I mean that was incredible quarterbacking.
But that's what made I think some fans hate him so much, is that there was so much promise. Well, listen, it goes back to the story we heard from, I think it was Darren Sproles.
Yeah, Darren. Yeah,
who said that that Foles said something about not wanting the Eagles to win a Super Bowl without him.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And the teammates looked at him like, "Holy crap, dude! You realize you said that out loud?"
Yeah.
Right? Like,
which was a lot of immaturity, but a lot of people don't know, and the running backs couldn't stand Carson. But I do think as time went by, people would leave that in the past and say, hey, you know what? That was a special time for this organization. I don't get that feeling. Maybe it'll exist sometime. Like now I root for Carson. I'm like, yeah, obviously Eagles fans don't want him to win this week, but any other week I'd be rooting for that guy. I'd be like, hey, he helped me get my first stinking Super Bowl.
Yeah,
he was a big part of that.
You're right. He was phenomenal for the first 12 games of the year, whatever it was. He was going to be the NFL MVP. Played a super high level. I think the not want to lose to Wentz. I think it's your ex, right? You don't want to lose to your ex. Yeah. I think that's what it is. So I don't think it's like the hatred of. Listen, everybody when he left the Eagles, everybody wanted to see that guy hit rock bottom, and he hit rock bottom. He pulled out a shovel and started digging and went further than that, right? So I think people have seen him suffer enough, and they're willing to say, oh, you know what? It's because it's not like he destroyed the team. It's not like he destroyed the city. He just offered so much hope, and then got so weird about Foles winning the Super Bowl. But I think some of that stuff has passed by. But now you just don't want to lose to. First of all, they don't want to lose a third game.
I don't want to lose to anybody.
They don't want to lose to the Vikings, and then to lose to your ex, who's rehabbed and is trying to clean his life up, or however metaphor you want to use for it, right? So you don't want to lose to that person. So so I think that the Eagles, as much as any, I'd love to see them play a full, complete game of pretty good football. It doesn't have to be great. I'm not looking for a 40-10 win, but just play 4 quarters where you say that was a smart football team for 4 quarters. That hadn't been the case this year. No. But at this point, trying to get over a 2-game losing streak, if they win 11-10 Jet style, Jets Broncos style, I'll be fine with that. Just go find a way to win that football game. If you can somehow get to the bye 6-2, take a week off, heal yourself, and get through it, then that would be something to get ready for.
Things are looking up if that's the case. No doubt.
Yeah, exactly. What you don't want to do is limp in there with a third straight loss.
No doubt. Tommy, good stuff, man. We appreciate you joining in. Make sure you guys follow him at Lawlor NFL and go to eaglesblitz.com. That's IGGLES blitz.com. Tommy, thanks for joining in today, brother. We appreciate talking to you. We hope to talk to you again soon. All right.
Have a great weekend, fellas.
All right.
Thanks bud.